South Carolina, which is the site of a battle that took place during the Revolutionary War. This particular battle took place on January 17th, 1781, which is about 2 years prior to the end of the Revolutionary War. The war began actually in 1775. The United States declared its independence in 1776, and then all hell broke loose until 1783. In this particular situation, there is a fort in a town called 96, South Carolina, which is about 83 miles southwest of this area that we're going to. There was a general for the British side that wanted to protect this fort because this fort was a strategic military stronghold for the British Army. And he had heard that an American army was headed towards this fort in 96 to destroy it. And in order to defend it, he appointed one of his officers by the name of Bannister Tarleton to go down there and defend 96. So he gives him 1,150 troops. They head down into 96, only to discover that Morgan was never there. And it's unknown whether or not Morgan was even headed there in the first place. But the fact is, Morgan and his troops were in the general area, about 83 miles away. So when Tarleton finds out that Morgan never was there and that this intel that they had gotten was incorrect, he decided, well, I'm going to go after Morgan anyway. So he takes his 1,100 guys and he starts heading northeast to where Morgan supposedly was. He's gathering intel on the way up there, and he is getting closer and closer, and finally he gets some accurate information as to where Morgan and his troops were. You know, he's marched his guys 83 miles from 96 to this point that we're going to now. So they're tired, you know, they're sick, they're malnourished, and he doesn't give them the opportunity to relax. He doesn't give them the opportunity to regroup. He doesn't take the opportunity to come up with any kind of strategies to go up against this much larger army. And he decides that at 3 o'clock in the morning, they're just going to attack Morgan's group. Well, Morgan is aware of what's going on, and they do what's called a double envelopment, which is part of this guerrilla warfare that I'm talking about. They split off into two groups, and as Tarleton's group is coming up northeast, Morgan's group splits into two, surrounds Tarleton's group, and just completely destroys them. So, you know, we've got a situation here where we've got this Tarleton's group are completely tired. Again, they're malnourished. They're not ready for battle. They're going up against Morgan, who's got a lot more battle experience. And they're rested and ready to go. So Tarleton really never stood a chance. Him and his army never stood a chance. Only about 200, including Tarleton himself, were able to actually escape this battle. And so they were able to get away, and Morgan prevailed in this particular situation. So Tarleton, you know, about a year later, he was 27 years old. He returned back to England and, you know, lived out the rest of his life. He was 78 when he died, so he lived about another 50 years back in England. He went back to being a politician. And that's the story of Cowpens. So that's where we're headed now. Oh yeah. Kris wants me to bring up the fact that this place supposedly is extremely haunted. I guess when people are there, sometimes they'll see soldiers walking along the trails. Even if it's during the day, they'll see them walking along the trails. And I think that the story behind it is that they don't realize that they're dead. Something like that, right?
Yeah.
Tell me.
I think that you said it all. They still think they're fighting the battle. So even in daytime, you're able to see these soldiers, which is the kind of ghost hunting I like, because I'm too scared to go ghost hunting at night. So that's where we're headed. We're headed to Cowpens.
There it is.
Here's the sign.
Cowpens National Battlefield. So we will be there in just a few minutes.
We got 3 poopers.
They're all pooping?
Yes.
Oh my God.
You want to read the sign?
Sure.
Oh, look. Morgan's Flying Army.
Morgan's army came from many states. The two Carolinas, Delaware, Georgia, Maryland, Virginia. They were joined by militia, some of whom had helped destroy the British Army of Loyalist Americans under Ferguson at Kings Mountain.
That's where we're going to go next, is Kings Mountain.
They camped nearby without tents and nervously awaited the dawn. So on the sign, as we were coming in, conflicted with what I was reading about yesterday. It was saying that there was a total of 970 American troops, but everything that I read yesterday said that there was 1,900. So that's a huge difference. I'm not really sure why there's such a large discrepancy in what I've been reading about and what was actually on the plaque out front. Anyway, you slice it, Morgan's army won. So it was a big part of, you know, us winning this Revolutionary War against the British. So kind of a cool place. Think we'll see any ghosts out here today?
I hope so.
I know that if you saw one, you would just turn around and run as fast as you possibly could.
No, I wouldn't. I'd walk up to them and say hello.
You would not. You would let go of the dogs and you would run.
Morgan posts his ground for its tactical advantage, a river to the rear to discourage the ranks from breaking, rising ground on which to post his regulars, an open forest, and a marsh on one side to thwart flanking maneuvers. Oh, some smart buddies. Smart guys.
Yeah. They learned that from the American Indians.
Wow. Look at what that was like.
Oh my God, could you imagine?
No.
And they were all fighting with swords.
Ugh.
I would have thought there would have been more guns involved, right? But it's mostly swords.
Open forest, well suited for cavalry action, fast-moving, hard-hitting mounted troops called light dragoons. Is that dragoons? Bolstered the 18th century infantry. At least 70 South Carolinians and Georgians, mounted militiamen, armed with pistols and sabers, issued for use in this campaign, augmented the veteran 80-plus American dragoons.
It must be that when they're in those battles like that, because with those old musket-type guns that they had to, it took so long to reload them, that when they're all fighting with each other, that swords just made more sense.
Well, they said that the guys were fighting here, and then the dragoons hid in the trees on the horses with the swords. And then the British didn't even know if they were there. These people were pretty smart.
Pretty smart.
And it's amazing what people that came before us went through on these very grounds we're walking on. And we have it like so easy now. If you think about it.
All right, so it says here that the American second line of defense stood in position here. At sunrise, the British appeared. The militia, though not trained to stand against massed British bayonets, fought well and shot with deadly effect. This guy here, Thomas Young, 17 years old, says, at first it was pop, 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 the sound of rifles, and then the whole volley. It seemed like one sheet of flame from right to left. And so that happened right here. Here comes Tarleton's army, and Morgan's coming from this position, and they surround his army and just start shooting. Sharpshooters at the skirmish line. The sharpshooters at the skirmish line waited until Tarleton's army got within shooting distance. Their orders were to slow Tarleton's advance with well-aimed rifle fire and then fall back to the militia's second line. As the British came within range, the militia delivered deadly fire, dropping 2/3 of the officers and then funneled back through the Continental line.
Says the Washington Light Infantry of Charleston, South Carolina, erected this monument In 1856, near the final stages of the Battle of Cowpens, to commemorate the important American victory here.
Huh.
Though the times have changed much of the monument's original appearance, it stands today as the earliest testament of the valor of the Patriot Army at the Cowpens.
Back in 1781, these trees here that are kind of dotting the landscape weren't here. This was actually just a big grassy meadow. Again, it was a cow pasture. This is where the ranchers kept a lot of their cows, was here. So it looks like a bunch of weeds and, you know, some trees coming up, but it was grass back then. This house supposedly was occupied by a man by the name of Scruggs, but I don't know who he is. I don't know how he was part of this battle, but this is where he lived. There's a sign coming up right up here, so we'll take a look at that sign and see how he plays into this story. Okay, now we figure out who Scruggs is. He was the landowner. It says life was hard at the time. Yeomen, I guess that's a yeomen farmers raised corn, wheat, potatoes, and livestock while their wives tended to the household tasks such as spinning wool into yarn, rendering animal fat into soap, and maintaining a vegetable garden. So he was the person that lived here and owned this cow pasture at the time that this battle took place.
His cows were probably the ones that were grazing here.
Yeah, watch out for those spider webs. Sometimes when you're walking out here, there'll be these giant spider webs, probably 3 feet across, that will just be across the trail. Usually if it's a well worn trail that, you know, you don't see them too often, but if it's one that people don't go too often, you can wrap your face into a spider web if you're not careful. I don't think that'll be an issue here because there's quite a few people here today. What does the sign say? Form the line of battle. Today, Tarleton's force would be called a Combined Arms Task Force. They contain all the elements to conduct a quick movement and engage the enemy. Ranks of red-coated fusiliers. What's a fusilier? I use a lot of words on here that I'm not familiar with. Red-coated fusiliers, regulars, and raw recruits of the 7th Regiment formed in this immediate area. Wetlands impeded the maneuvers of this maneuvers. I think I'm just going to stop recording now.
I guess P.F. Chang's is shutting down a bunch of their restaurants across the country, and Greenville may be one of them.
Why?
The pandemic. I guess that was what happened to Ruby Tuesdays, huh? Hey, well, you should sing that song.
What song?
Goodbye, Ruby Tuesday.
Oh God, that's funny. I have to look and see if they're just shutting down some of their stores or some of their restaurants or all of them. All right. Colonel Howard's misunderstood order. After firing twice, the militia retreated behind the Continentals, who were awaiting the British advance in this area. British reinforcement, Fraser's 71st Highlanders, threatened the Continentals' right flank. Lieutenant Colonel Howard ordered his right flank to turn to face them. His center and left flank misunderstood and began to orderly retreat. Sensing victory, the British broke ranks, surged forward. Morgan ordered the Continentals to face about and fire at close range. Raw recruits of the British 7th Regiment panicked and fell back. The Highlanders, still coming on like a mob, were repulsed. The stage was set for entrapment, annihilation, and American victory.
Oh, I said, you know what you failed to mention is that these British troops were just not people from England coming over here. they were loyalists to the English crown. So you may have brothers fighting brothers, cousins fighting cousins. You might be fighting with your neighbor. It said a lot of people, if they had a grudge against someone, use this as an excuse to fight against them for something that might have been something they've done completely irrelevant to this battle.
Well, plus there was other people from different countries that were here too, like Germany. There was a lot of German people here, and Scottish, Irish, and French, I believe.
Some French. The main of the Patriots, the backbone of them, were Scottish, Wales, English, and Irish, who had retreated back into this country a long time ago.
Here's that double envelopment I was talking about. On this field, the Continentals blunted the British advance, then charged with bayonets flashing. Cavalry hit the left and right of the 71st. The militia reformed and surged against the right and left. British troops found themselves overwhelmed and surrounded. Morgan had executed a double envelopment. In less than an hour, the crucial Battle of Cowpens had been decided. The classic use of the military tactic of double envelopment took place at the Battle of Cannae in southern Italy in 216 BC. There, soldiers under the command of Hannibal surrounded and crushed a much larger, superior Roman army.
All right, so if we're ever commanding a military, we have to remember to use the double envelopment technique, okay?
That's right.
So
that's what we do with the dogs.
We do that with the dogs.
I think we're coming out of this thing. I think. Oh yeah. All right. Right here we have Elizabeth, which we call Lizzie, and this one right here behind her is Beatrice, which we call Phoebe. They're sisters, about 13 years old now. They look pretty good. I mean, they look like they're in pretty good shape. You couldn't tell. And then here we have Jesus. That's spelled H-E-Y, and then Zeus, like the Greek god. He's 6.
Is he 6?
Yeah, he's 6
No,
now.
he's not.
We've had him for 3 years, and he was 3 when we got him. So that puts him at 6. Yeah, they trouble with us when we come to these places. And because these two are getting old, they can't really go as long as they used to. You know, we don't really like to push them more than about 2 miles. And after that, they're pretty well spent. But they do like to come out here. Come on, BB. Let's go, sweetie. So here we are at the end of the trail. We've kind of made it all the way through the trail, the battlefield trail as they called it. Coming back out into the, yeah, we didn't see any ghosts, so, you know. The whole thing was a bust. We should have never came. But anyways, yeah, that's the, what would you call that? The ranger station, I guess? Wait, the ranger station?
It's a visitor center.
Or visitor center, that's what it is. Yeah, so, I don't know, this was a pretty cool place. Cowpens. It's a nice place. I guess there's some other walking trails that are here that we'll probably come back and check out. But this was kind of the main touristy one that we just went along on.
Also, look, on a Saturday afternoon, we pretty much have the park to ourselves.
Yeah, it's Saturday, and there really was, I mean, we passed maybe, I don't know, 5 people, something like that, on this, you know, about a 1.5 mile walk that we were on. So, I mean, even on a Saturday, it's, you know, you can pretty much have the whole place to yourself, which is really nice. It's just very quiet and serene here.